My wife blew up our marriage chasing excitement, only to end up with herpes, and now nobody wants her. Hello Reddit I plus here. My name is Adrian Walsh, and I'm 41 years old. For most of my adult life, I thought I had it figured out. Steady career, stable marriage, the kind of routine that makes you feel safe, grounded, and maybe a little too comfortable. I married Isabella, who's 37 now, 9 years ago. Back then, she was warm, magnetic, the type of person who walked into a room and made everyone feel like they'd known her forever. She worked in communications for a regional nonprofit, and I was a network engineer for a mid-sized financial firm. I'm more introverted by nature, and she loved that I grounded her when life spun too fast. For years, we balanced each other, or so I thought. Around year 7 of our marriage, Isabella started showing cracks in the facade. She began dropping comments about feeling stale and trapped in routines. At first, I brushed it off. We'd all felt bogged down by the daily grind, but soon her comments sharpened. Adrian, sometimes it feels like I'm wasting the best years of my life doing the same thing every day. Don't you miss when things were exciting? She didn't want comfort. She wanted chaos dressed up as adventure. It began with small changes. New wardrobe, flashier, tighter, younger, weekly hair treatments, nights out with coworkers she barely used to mention. She insisted it was girls' nights, or just reconnecting with people her age. I wanted to be supportive, but in the pit of my stomach, I knew something was shifting. Soon, her late nights became early mornings. She'd stumble in at 2 or 3 a.m., reeking of alcohol and perfume that wasn't hers. When I asked, she'd brush it off. Relax, Adrian. I just danced too long. Don't turn into a paranoid old man. One night, when she thought I was asleep, I overheard her on the phone whispering to someone about how alive she felt. The words stuck like shards in my chest. The breaking point came with a so-called work retreat to Las Vegas. She packed as though she were moving. Heels, dresses, lingerie. When she returned, she was buzzing with energy, eyes sparkling like I hadn't seen since we were in our 20s. But her affection toward me was gone, replaced with distance. She would smile at her phone more than she smiled at me. 2 months later, the truth crawled out, ugly and uninvited. Isabella begged me to drive her to urgent care. She looked miserable, avoiding eye contact. She said it was probably just a UTI. I sat in the car for over an hour. When she came back out, her face was pale, streaked with tears. On the ride home, silence hung like a fog until she finally broke. She admitted it all, the affairs, the men she'd met at clubs, hotel bars on those so-called girls' trips. She confessed that she had been chasing the high of being wanted again, the rush of strangers' eyes on her body, the thrill of secret rendezvous. And then, the hammer dropped. She'd contracted herpes, an incurable reminder of her recklessness. She tried to spin it like a revelation. This has opened my eyes, Adrian. I realize now what we had was real. And those flings were nothing. I don't want to lose us, but it wasn't just the disease. It was everything. The betrayal, the lies, the sheer disregard for the life we built. I got tested immediately. Thank God, I was clean. She'd avoided intimacy with me for months, not out of guilt, but to cover her tracks. In her twisted way, her distance saved me. While she scrambled to learn about treatments, diets, and managing outbreaks, I sat in quiet fury. She had gambled our marriage, our health, and for what? A handful of sweaty nights with strangers who vanished once reality set in. I filed for divorce within weeks. She cried, begged, screamed, said I was abandoning her at her lowest point, but pity isn't a foundation for marriage. She hadn't been thinking of me when she was sneaking into hotel rooms with men who didn't even know her last name. Life after the divorce was brutal. For her, she moved back in with her parents because her salary couldn't cover rent alone. Her mother, sharp-tongued and unforgiving, reminded her daily that she'd thrown away a stable home for barroom validation. Dating became a nightmare for her. Every time she disclosed her condition, men bolted. Some mocked her, some ghosted her, some feigned sympathy before vanishing. She joined herpes-positive dating groups, but options were scarce, and the men she did meet often treated her like she should be grateful. They even gave her a chance. The same co-workers who once hyped up her independence and living life to the fullest cut her off, whispering about her behind her back. Word travels fast when drama and scandal are involved. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. I met someone through work, someone steady, kind, and most importantly, loyal. With her, there were no theatrics, no desperate need for thrills at the expense of trust. Just two people who valued honesty. A year after the divorce, Isabella was still single, still at her parents', still chasing scraps of validation online. She'd post motivational quotes about self-love and resilience, but I could see the cracks. The vibrant woman who once believed she was too alive for suburban domesticity had become trapped in a cage of her own making. 2 years later, nothing changed. Same job, same room in her parents' house, same support groups filled with people reminding each other that they were still worthy of love, even if most of the world didn't see it that way. The cruelest irony? She left me because she felt bored, because she wanted freedom. And in chasing that freedom, she chained herself to something permanent. She thought stability was a prison. Turns out, the real prison was the one she built with her own reckless choices. I've moved on completely. She hasn't. She once said she wanted to feel alive again. Instead, she destroyed her marriage, her reputation, and her future relationships, all for a thrill that lasted hours, but consequences that will last forever. You see, after the divorce papers were filed, Isabella didn't disappear quietly. At first, she tried pity. Calling, texting, sending long emails filled with regret. Adrian, you don't understand. I wasn't myself. I was lost. That wasn't me. Please don't give up on me now. We can rebuild this. When pity didn't work, she shifted into guilt. How can you abandon me when I'm sick? You promised in our vows, in sickness and in health. Does that mean nothing to you? She'd cry on the phone, telling me how lonely it felt living in her childhood bedroom again, how her parents looked at her like a failure. I'd listen, cold and silent, until finally I had to cut her off. You weren't thinking about vows when you were sneaking into hotels with strangers, Isabella. You made choices. Now you live with them that only fueled her desperation. She began showing up at my office unannounced, waiting in the parking lot for me to get off work. She'd stand by my car, clutching her purse like some fragile lost soul. Coworkers saw her, and the whispers started. I had to pull her aside one afternoon and lay it out plain. You don't get to invade my life anymore. This isn't your home, and I'm not your safety net. Don't show up here again. She cried, nodded, and swore it was the last time. 2 days later, she was outside again. Her manipulation shifted to nostalgia. Old photos mailed to my house, our wedding album left on my porch, a USB stick filled with videos from our vacations together, accompanied by a note. Look how happy we were. Don't throw this away. We can have it again. The truth? Those photos felt like ghosts. Memories of a woman who no longer existed. When I started dating someone new, Isabella found out quickly. A mutual friend must have told her. That's when she turned vicious. She sent long, venomous texts about how my girlfriend would never love me the way she did, how I was making a fool of myself parading around with a rebound while my wife was suffering. When that didn't get under my skin, she turned manipulative in a darker way, spreading rumors. She told mutual friends that I had given her herpes, that I'd been cheating for years, that I was divorcing her to run off with some office fling. She thought if she poisoned my reputation, she'd force me back into defending her, maybe even back into her orbit. It backfired. I got ahead of it, shared the truth with people I trusted, and when the medical paperwork proved me clean, her lies collapsed. Those who'd believed her looked at her differently, realizing the depth of her desperation. Still, she didn't stop. 6 months after the divorce, Isabella called late at night, slurring her words, clearly drunk. She begged me to come pick her up from a bar across town. She said she had no one else to call, that she was scared, that men were harassing her. Against my better judgment, I went. I found her sitting alone, mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair a mess. She clung to me the moment I arrived, whispering, "See, you still love me. You came for me. You'll always come for me." I pulled her arms off me and said flatly, "I came because I didn't want to read about you in the morning news. That's it." She laughed bitterly, called me heartless, and stormed off into the night. Over the next year, her manipulations got subtler. She'd send birthday cards with long handwritten notes, as if pretending we were still married. She mailed me Christmas presents from your wife. She even once showed up at my parents' house during Thanksgiving, claiming she'd been invited and trying to squeeze back into family traditions. When I confronted her, she broke down sobbing in front of everyone. "I just miss being part of the family. Please, Adrian, just give me another chance. Nobody else will love me like you did." That's when it hit me. It wasn't love she wanted. It was survival. She knew she was trapped, scarlet-lettered by her choices, shut out from the dating pool, and she wanted me back not out of affection, but because I was the last safe harbor, and I refused to be her prison guard. The more I distanced myself, the more manipulative she became. She once threatened to out herself publicly on social media, tagging me, framing me as the husband who abandoned his sick wife. She thought shame would bend me back. I told her calmly, "Do what you want, Isabella. The truth will stand. You can't scare me back into your arms." Her parents eventually intervened, furious at how she was harassing me. Even they told her bluntly that she had made her bed and she needed to lie in it. She turned on them too, accusing them of never supporting her and taking my side. It's been 2 full years now, and Isabella is still stuck, still single, still living with her parents, still trying to manipulate sympathy from anyone who will listen, but the sympathy has dried up. People grew tired of her games. Me, I built something new, something real. My girlfriend, now fiancé, knows everything, every ugly detail, and she chose to stand with me anyway. That kind of honesty, that kind of loyalty, is something Isabella never valued until it was gone forever. The irony is sharp. Isabella destroyed our marriage chasing freedom, but the only freedom she found was the kind that left her trapped in isolation, begging for scraps of attention, manipulating anyone who'd listen. She tried pity, guilt, nostalgia, rumors, shame, every trick in the book. But in the end, manipulation can't rebuild trust, lies can't rebuild love, and desperation can't resurrect what she burned to ash. She lost me forever, and deep down, I think she knows it. A few months after her last breakdown, Isabella shifted tactics again. She sent me a certified letter through her attorney, claiming she deserved spousal support because I had a higher standard of living than she did. Never mind that she was the one who destroyed the marriage, or that she had been the one unfaithful. She tried to twist the law to her advantage. I sat in my lawyer's office, jaw tight, as he read through the papers. "She's trying to argue financial dependence," he said, sighing. "But given the adultery and your clean medical record, the court's not going to side with her. It's desperation." It was more than desperation. It was manipulation with a legal mask. She thought if she could drain me financially, I'd fold, come back to her to stop the bleeding. When that failed, she pivoted again. Suddenly, I began receiving calls from unknown numbers. Bill collectors looking for Isabella. Apparently, she'd started racking up credit card debt in her name, but had given my number as the emergency contact. She wanted me to feel responsible, to step in and rescue her. I didn't bite. Then came the health scares. One night, she left a trembling voicemail. "Adrian, I'm in the ER. I don't think I'm going to make it through the night. Please come. Please." My heart clenched for a moment, old instincts flaring, but I forced myself to wait. I called the hospital instead of her. The nurse at the desk told me she'd come in complaining of severe abdominal pain, but had already been discharged. Nothing life-threatening, just another performance. A week later, she tried again, showing up at my place with a fake limp, clutching her stomach, saying her condition was getting worse and she needed someone to take care of her. When I told her to leave, she collapsed dramatically on my doorstep, moaning like a wounded animal. I had no choice but to call her parents to come get her. They arrived embarrassed, muttering apologies, dragging her back into their car while she wailed, "Adrian, don't abandon me," loud enough for the neighbors to hear. But the most twisted manipulation came when she tried to use the possibility of my reputation against me. She hinted that if I didn't at least talk about reconciliation, she'd start telling people I'd known about her affairs and encouraged them, framing me as some deviant husband who secretly enjoyed being betrayed. She thought I'd protect my reputation by keeping her close. That's when I stopped engaging at all. No more responses, no more explanations, just silence. She could scream into the void for all I cared, but Isabella wasn't done. 6 months later, she filed a motion claiming she needed access to my medical records, arguing that I might have infected her and destroyed her future. It was laughable, but it still forced me back into a courtroom, watching her sit there with crocodile tears rolling down her cheeks, painting herself as the tragic victim. The judge dismissed it swiftly when the facts were presented, but the stunt made one thing clear. Isabella was willing to scorch the earth just to pull me back into her orbit. When her schemes failed, she slipped into darker forms of manipulation. Messages about how she couldn't go on living without me. Late-night texts like, "If you don't forgive me, I don't see a reason to wake up tomorrow." It was emotional blackmail at its ugliest. I called her bluff once, forwarding the message to her parents instead of responding. They intervened, furious, and from then on, she stopped trying that angle with me. But she didn't stop entirely. She tried to manipulate through others, reaching out to my fiancé, sending her long, rambling messages about how she was the real reason Adrian left, and that I was only using her to fill a void. She even hinted that I still checked in on her behind the scenes, trying to plant seeds of doubt. Thankfully, my fiancé trusted me completely and shut her down instantly. The more Isabella failed, the more frantic her attempts became. She sent me handwritten letters weekly, some begging, some accusing, some promising she'd never stop fighting for us. Every letter ended with the same signature, "Forever yours, no matter what." It became almost ritualistic. her manipulations morphing from one tactic to another: pity, guilt, fear, financial pressure, legal games, emotional blackmail, a carousel of desperation that spun faster the more I refused to climb back on. The truth was simple. Isabella wasn't fighting for love. She was fighting against loneliness. And the cruelest part was that the more she tried to manipulate me, the more she guaranteed her own isolation.